And today we were gonna read spooky story starting at the cellar story. And now we should start reading from the first page of the chapter and the end of reading at this story for today because we have a lot of time today. Now, already for read this one book with a lot of stories. Now here we go. And first we should read spooky stories starting at the cellar chapter. Long ago, there was a boy named Raffle, and Raffle was a very happy boy. He lived with a hut made from mud and straw with his parents, and even though they didn't have much, they were happy to have each other. Raph's family were very proud of their boy. He was growing up so strong and healthy. He never once complained about cleaning out a kitchen cup. But Raph would wake up at the crack of dawn and go to bed when the sun went down. And on special nights, Raph's parents gave him a candle so he couldn't stay up a little longer to read. Sometimes, if Raph was enjoying a book, he stayed up extra late and read under the covers. But it turns out that wasn't such a good idea back then. Raph's favorite stories were the ones about other children because Raph didn't have any friends of his own. In fact, Raph had never met anyone besides his mom and dad. Sometimes Raph would ask his parents if they could get a trip to the place where there are other people, but Rap's parents said the journey will be too dangerous, and they show him why. So Raph made pretend friends out of mud and straw to play with, which was okay, but Raph really wished he had the real thing. One night after Raph had finished reading, he went to the kitchen to get some water, but then he heard strange noises unlike anything he heard before. The sounds were coming from the cellar, and even though Ralph was very curious about the noises, his parents had told him he must never go down into the cellar. The next morning at breakfast, Raph described his mysterious sound he heard the night before. But his parents said maybe Raph had been dreaming because he was making nonsense noises. Raph wanted to ask his parents that what was in the cellar and why his dad was down there every Monday to Friday from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. But he knew they didn't like him to talk about those things. Years passed and Raph didn't hear the sounds again. But now Raph was 18 years old and almost as tall as his father. Raph's parents could see that their boy had become a man, and they said it was time to tell him the truth about where they came from. So they describe a world with cars and airplanes and medicine and other things that made Raph's head spin. And they told Raph the word they came from was wonderful in some ways, but there was a dark side too. Then they told him about the glowing objects called screens that everyone under their spell. They explained that When Raph was born, they didn't want him to grow up under the spell of screens. So they made a decision to leave their work behind. All of a sudden, everything made sense to Ralph. His parents was time travelers, and they took him back to the simpler time to protect him. When but when Ralph mentioned it, the time travel thing, his parents had a pretty good chuckle and told him that Dad had told all told him he had all wrong. That they said when they left the war behind, they just move away from the city and pretend they were leaving to the Dark Ages. When Ralph said it was something he had never reading a long time to show him. So he opened the cellar door and took Ralph down the steps, where Ralph saw things that totally blew his mind, like the computer and the printer was a fancy chair on wheels. Ralph dad said he had a job where he worked from home, and then he introduced Ralph to his coworkers. Hi, Ralph. Ralph started to feel dizzy and said he needed to sit down. So he sat in his dad's chair, which was a lot more comfortable than the crummy stools he used to. Ralph's parents could see that their son wasn't happy, and they felt kind of bad for lying to him all his life. And they thought maybe they'd gone a little overboard trying to protect him from the modern world. Then Ralph's dad had got an idea for how to make it up to his son. He told Ralph that now he was grown man, there was something we should have. And he gave Ralph his very first phone. Ralph's parents said there was one more secret they needed to tell him. They said they were surrounded by sharks and wolves and snakes, and that they were only a few miles from a big city. They said it was time for Ralph to join the modern world and get a job and start a family of his own. But now that Ralph had a phone, he wasn't interested in anything else. And he didn't see any reason to ever leave home. So Ralph's parents thought maybe they had a right idea to begin with. Now we have read all of the chapters for today. So now that you have fun, Yellow's English Country will come back with some new stories for tomorrow, new spooky stories for tomorrow. And now, please thumbs up my YouTube, and bye bye everyone.